Okay, so I have been hatching since 2018. I've been hatching using the Nurture Right 360 since 2018. I've been hatching for the last several years using a dry hatch method until lockdown. So where I won't add any water to the incubator until day 19. And at day 19, I'll add water to the incubator to bump humidity up to about 60 to 70%. Up until that point, like throughout incubation, when I don't add any water, my humidity runs typically between like 35 and 45. I'm in Florida, so my temperatures are just naturally really, really humid. So I say all that to preface this because every hatch is a learning process, and it's important just to know what's normal for you on your farm in your area. And because what works here for me may be slightly tweaked wherever you are, and you have to use your best judgment. Take my experience, but use your best judgment also. So, with all that being said, what I have noticed about chicks hatching is that typically the first chick will pip, and it can take up to 24 hours from that first like hole poked in the egg from that first pip until the time that that chick unzips and like pushes out of the egg entirely. Typically like the first chick or two will hatch, and then like a bunch of them hatch all at once. Sometimes during that time too, you'll notice that your heat and humidity will spike really quick all of a sudden, and that's really normal when everybody's hatching all at once. So typically, I'm like out of breath from walking and talking at the same time. That is not a good sign for the apocalypse. After that first bunch of chicks hatch, and that's usually around day 21, 22, they don't always hatch on day 21. Usually you'll start to see a pip on day 21, but if you don't, it could be a temperature issue. If the temperature is slightly lower than 99.5 degrees throughout the incubation process, your chicks could hatch a day or so later. If it's slightly higher, they could hatch a day or two earlier. But once your chicks have gone through like the massive hatch, sometimes there'll be a few left behind. If I see problems with chicks hatching, it's usually in those last couple to hatch. I have found that it's not even uncommon with those last couple to hatch to have like shrink wrap chicks, even if they weren't pipped when you open the incubator. I can't explain it. I don't even know why it happens. Typically what I'm looking at, is like the membrane. Sometimes you can kind of look into the incubator and see how the membrane looks, and sometimes it'll even look kind of papery, or you can see that they've sort of been trying to push the egg apart and it just won't push apart because the membrane will look dry. The thing to keep in mind is that sometimes helping causes way more problems than it is helpful. Like if they are just pipped through that shell and have just sort of poked a little hole through that shell and you think they need help and you try to go in, it's really possible that they are not quite ready to hatch, and when you go and start cracking that shell off, you might see some blood pour out because they're still absorbing the yolk and all the nutrients in that shell before it's time to hatch. Sometimes if chicks don't have the strength to hatch themselves, they likely weren't going to survive anyways. And so if you do help them out, those might be chicks who pass within the first couple hours or day as well. And that's tough. It's tough to lose chicks, but nature always knows best. So anyways, I'm not sure if I really answered your question. What I'll do is as I keep hatching this year, I'll post videos when I come across instances where I need to help my chicks to kind of give you an idea of how it looks around here.